What if the person closest to you just vanished and nobody had any answers? Lily Harper was always the life of Cedarwood, friendly, outgoing, and deeply connected to everyone she knew. But on a cold autumn evening, she vanished. No note, no warning. Her apartment was untouched, her car left behind, and the phone records were eerily silent. Her parents hadn't heard from her in days. When the local authorities arrived, they found nothing unusual, except that Lily was gone. Her neighbors reported hearing nothing out of the ordinary that night, but something didn't feel right. Lily was the type of person who always kept in touch. This wasn't like her. Was it voluntary? Did she leave? Or was there something darker behind her disappearance? A shattered phone. A final message. Who was she talking to? The only lead was her phone, found in a pile of dirt just a mile away from her apartment. It was shattered, but the screen still worked enough to read the last text she sent. It simply said, "I'll be fine. It's just too much. I need space." Who was she talking to? And why was she suddenly so desperate for space? No one had been aware that she was going through anything more than the usual pressures of work and life. Lily's friends and family described her as happy and full of life, but now they were left grappling with a message that didn't make sense. Detective Hayes immediately traced the phone's last call, but the number had been wiped from the logs. This was starting to feel like someone wanted it to look like she'd just run away, except Lily wasn't the type to just leave. The missing letter. A letter, sealed and forgotten. What was Lily hiding? Back at her apartment, police found something. Curious. An unopened letter. It was wedged between the pages of a book she'd been reading, yet it had never been opened. The envelope was addressed to Lily, but the handwriting was unfamiliar to anyone in her circle. The authorities immediately began investigating the letter. Who had sent it, and why hadn't Lily opened it? Was it a clue? Or was someone trying to give her a message she had chosen to ignore? Emma, her best friend, was certain it had nothing to do with Lily's disappearance. But then why had Lily hidden it? A friend's secret. Not all secrets stay buried. Could a best friend be hiding something? As the investigation into Lily's life deepened, Emma's behavior became more erratic. She had always been a close friend, but something about her demeanor was off. She seemed nervous when asked about their last conversation. Soon, the police found a troubling journal entry in Emma's diary from the night before Lily disappeared. The words revealed an argument that took place between the two women, an argument over something mysterious. Lily had mentioned feeling unsafe and told Emma she had a plan to leave town. But why hadn't Emma mentioned this before? Was she keeping something back? A secret that could lead to the truth of what happened to her friend? The stranger's call. What if the call you received was from someone who knew your darkest secrets? 2 days before her disappearance, Lily received an unsettling phone call. The caller didn't say a word. He just breathed heavily into the phone. Lily had never mentioned anything about this call to anyone. The police traced the number to an abandoned house just outside Cedarwood, but when they arrived, there was nothing. No signs of anyone having lived there for years. However, the phone record showed Lily had called this number several times in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Was this person involved in her disappearance? Or was it just someone trying to confuse the authorities? The unseen watcher. You're being watched, but you don't know by who. What would you do next? Neighbors began to recall a strange figure standing near Lily's apartment on the night she disappeared. A tall man, always wearing a long dark coat and never seen before in the neighborhood. But none of the neighbors had seen him leave. No, one knew who he was, but he seemed to be watching Lily's apartment, waiting. Was he a stalker? A stranger? Or was he someone from Lily's past who had been lying low? This only deepened the mystery. Had Lily been running from someone all along? The Whispering Woods Hook. There's something haunting about those woods. Some say they speak to you. After a few days of no progress, a search team ventured into the woods behind Lily's apartment. The area was dense with trees, and it was believed that local legends surrounded the place. Some claimed the woods were cursed, that anyone who ventured too far into them would hear whispers on the wind, voices calling out for help. When the team was deep within the woods, they began hearing faint noises that sounded like muffled voices. Was it the wind? Or was something, trying to lead them to Lily? They found no trace of her, but the sounds they heard stayed with them. Something was definitely off about the woods. The lost memory. One forgotten detail could change everything. What if the past holds the key? Jason, Lily's old high school friend, came forward with an odd memory. He recalled her mentioning once that she was planning to leave Cedarwood after high school, but Lily had never talked about leaving town in recent years. Why would she have hidden this from everyone? Jason's words were disturbing. He remembered an unusual fight they had the week before she disappeared. He'd asked her if she was happy staying in Cedarwood, and she'd hesitated, her eyes full of an emotion he couldn't place. It was almost as if she knew something bad was coming. Could this conversation have been a clue to her disappearance? Was she planning to leave the town for a reason they couldn't yet understand? The cryptic clue: a forgotten necklace, a hidden message. Who left it behind, and why? When a construction crew was working on an old lot near Cedarwood High, they uncovered a piece of jewelry, a necklace Lily always wore. It had been buried under some debris, far from where anyone would expect it. The workers turned it in, and the police immediately recognized it as belonging to Lily. How did it end up in such a remote place? Was someone trying to plant evidence to suggest she'd been there recently? Or was it a desperate attempt to draw the police's attention elsewhere? And if someone knew about Lily's necklace, what else were they hiding? The hidden room. What do you do when you uncover a hidden room filled with secrets? A second search of Emma's home revealed something chilling. A hidden room in the attic, concealed behind a false wall. Inside the room were piles of old photographs, some of Lily, and some that were taken from places Lily had never been. Emma's face turned pale when confronted with these photos, but she denied having anything to do with them. She claimed she didn't know where they had come from. However, when the police looked closer, they found a journal in the room, Emma's journal, and one entry stood out. It was about a plan she and Lily had to leave town, a plan that was never completed. What was Emma hiding? Was she more involved in Lily's disappearance than anyone could have imagined? The neighbor's story. What if the key witness you need is someone no one trusts? Mr. Larson, the elderly man who lived next door to Lily, was quiet and unassuming. But when he was finally questioned by the police, he made a startling claim. On the night Lily disappeared, he had seen her leave her apartment, but she wasn't alone. She had been walking with a man, someone Mr. Larson had never seen before. The man was tall, with a dark coat and a low hat that obscured his face. Larson's testimony was shaky, but it added a disturbing new layer to the mystery. If Lily had left willingly with someone, then why didn't anyone know who he was? Was he connected to the strange phone calls or the shadowy figure seen near her apartment? Was this man Lily's captor or someone else entirely? The blackout hook. In the dead of night, everything changes. What secrets does the darkness reveal? Cedarwood experienced a strange power outage on the very night Lily disappeared. The blackout lasted for several hours, and while most residents went about their business, a few reported hearing strange noises during the darkness. Some said they heard footsteps outside their homes, while others described whispers, voices they couldn't quite place. When the lights came back on, Lily was gone. Could the blackout have been planned? Was it meant to cover up something? As the police reviewed footage from security cameras around town, they noticed a strange pattern. Several people were seen wandering aimlessly in the dark, but one figure stood out. A tall man in a dark coat, moving quickly between houses. This blackout wasn't a coincidence. But who had orchestrated it? And why? The police officer's guilt. What if the detective hunting for answers is hiding his own? Detective Stephen Hayes had been on the case from the start, but the deeper he dug, the more his own past started to resurface. Hayes had grown up in Cedarwood, and he remembered Lily, though she didn't remember him. But there was something about the case that seemed personal, something he wasn't prepared to face. As the investigation moved forward, it became clear that Hayes was hiding something. He'd been close to Lily's estranged father, Frank Harper, years ago, and there were whispers around town that the two men had a falling out, something so severe that Hayes had left town for a while before returning to become a detective. Could Hayes's connection to Lily's father be clouding his judgment? Or, worse, was he involved in her disappearance in some way? His guilt weighed heavily on him, and he began questioning his own role in the investigation. The family secret. Could the person you've been searching for be the one closest to you? Lily's estranged father, Frank Harper, reappeared in Cedarwood shortly after his daughter went missing. He hadn't been around for years. He left the family when Lily was young. His sudden return raised eyebrows, especially given his history with Detective Hayes. Frank claimed he was here to help, but his arrival seemed to add more questions than answers. He didn't seem all that concerned about his daughter's disappearance. In fact, some of his responses seemed too rehearsed, too distant. Was Frank hiding something? Did he know more about Lily's life than he was letting on? And why hadn't he been involved in her life for so many years? Was there a hidden reason behind his absence, or was he involved in her disappearance in some way? The buried truth. Sometimes, the darkest secrets lie beneath your feet. A large-scale excavation project began near the outskirts of town. When the workers began digging, they uncovered something unexpected, an old well, long forgotten, tucked away beneath layers of dirt and debris. Inside the well, they found a stack of old, brittle letters, some of which contained names that seemed eerily familiar. As it turned out, the letters were part of Cedarwood's early history, and they contained strange, cryptic messages. Some of the names mentioned in the letters were people who had long been buried in the town's history, people Lily had known, or at least people connected to her past. The more the authorities investigated, the clearer it became. Cedarwood had always been a town with secrets, and Lily's disappearance seemed to be linked to a far older mystery than anyone had ever imagined. The whispering witness. When a witness vanishes, the truth becomes even harder to find. A young woman named Ava came forward with a strange story. She claimed she saw Lily on the night she disappeared. But what was even stranger was that Ava said Lily was talking to someone in the shadows, someone she couldn't see clearly. She described the man as tall, but said she couldn't remember his face, just the way he moved. Ava's testimony could have been crucial, but before the police could question her further, Ava vanished. No one saw her again. Her apartment was found empty, and there were no traces of her whereabouts. Had she been involved in Lily's disappearance, or had someone else made her disappear too? This mysterious disappearance only added to the growing list of questions surrounding Lily's case. The hidden agenda. In a town full of secrets, whose side are you really on? As Detective Hayes dug deeper into the lives of those closest to Lily, it became clear that more than one person had somethings to hide. Emma, her best friend, had been acting suspiciously since the start of the investigation. Her evasive answers raised doubts, and the photos found in her hidden attic room were damning. But Emma wasn't the only one with secrets. Lily's co-workers at the local diner seemed to know more than they were saying. Frank Harper's return to town raised more suspicion than reassurance. And then there was Jason, Lily's high school friend, who seemed to be hiding something from the past that might connect him to the mystery. Everyone in Cedarwood was hiding something. But what was their agenda? And how far would they go to protect? It's the final countdown hook. The clock is ticking and the pressure is mounting. Can the truth be uncovered before it's too late? The search for Lily had reached a breaking point. The pressure from town officials was mounting, and Detective Hayes found himself facing an ultimatum. Either solve the case or face termination. The deeper Hayes dug, the more he uncovered about his own connections to the town's darker history. The investigation now seemed to be spiraling out of control, with new revelations pointing to a conspiracy involving multiple people, both within the town and beyond its borders. Could the truth come to light in time? Or would those responsible for Lily's disappearance succeed in keeping their secrets buried forever? The gathering storm. The closer you get to the truth, the more dangerous it becomes. Will anyone survive the storm? As Detective Hayes put the final pieces together, he realized that the mystery of Lily's disappearance was connected to something far more sinister. Something that had been hidden within Cedarwood for generations. The truth was far darker than anyone could have imagined. Now, the stakes were higher than ever. Hayes and those around him were in grave danger, and the lines between friend and foe were beginning to blur. As the storm gathered, it became clear that uncovering the truth might not be enough to save anyone involved. The face in the window. When you think you've seen the last of someone, what if they come back to haunt you? As the investigation reached its boiling point, a chilling sight was reported by a local resident. Late at night, from across the street, they saw a face in the window of Lily's apartment. Only it wasn't Lily's face. It was the face of someone else. A man. Could Lily still be alive? Had she been hiding in plain sight all this time? Or was this some twisted game being played by someone who wanted to taunt the authorities? The dark past. What if everything you thought you knew about the town you grew up in was a lie? As the investigation pressed on, Detective Hayes uncovered a shocking truth about Cedarwood's history, something the town's leaders had tried to bury for years. Decades ago, there had been a series of strange disappearances in the town, many of which were never solved. The names from the letters found in the old well seemed eerily familiar. They matched those of people who had vanished mysteriously years before, all in similar circumstances to Lily's case. The deeper Hayes went, the more he realized that Lily's disappearance might not be an isolated event. Was Cedarwood cursed? Or had someone orchestrated these disappearances for decades? There were too many links between the past and the present to ignore, and the truth about the town's hidden history seemed to be the key to solving the mystery. But could Hayes trust his own memories? And was he somehow connected to these past events? The unlikely ally. When your enemies become your allies, can you still trust them? Emma, who had been a suspect for much of the investigation, suddenly became an unlikely ally. After being confronted with new evidence about her connection to Lily, she finally broke down and confessed something chilling. She had been receiving strange, anonymous letters in the weeks leading up to Lily's disappearance. Letters warning her to stay away from Lily, or else. The letters were signed with a single word: Echo. Emma had dismissed them at first as a prank, but when she started noticing strange things happening, Lily becoming increasingly withdrawn, receiving cryptic phone calls, it became clear that someone was targeting both of them. Emma's new revelations shifted the investigation, providing a new lead. Who was Echo, and why were they so focused on Lily and her closest friends? The return of the shadows. What if the shadows never left? What if they were watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? A chilling piece of surveillance footage surfaced. It was from the night of the blackout, and it showed a shadowy figure lurking near Lily's apartment complex. The figure appeared to be watching the building, waiting for something. As the video played, viewers noticed something unsettling. This figure wasn't just a random bystander. It was wearing the same dark coat seen in multiple reports. This wasn't just a random passerby, it was someone with intent. The question now was, what had they been waiting for? When a witness claimed to have seen this figure near the outskirts of the woods days before Lily disappeared, the connection became undeniable. The shadows were tied to the dark history of Cedarwood. But why were they targeting Lily? And what role did they play in the string of past disappearances? The price of silence. What happens when silence becomes a weapon? A former resident of Cedarwood, Charles Montgomery, came forward with an explosive piece of information. He had lived in the town many years ago before moving away, but he never spoke up about the horrors he had witnessed. He revealed that the town had always had a code of silence. Whenever someone tried to expose the truth about the disappearances, they were silenced. This silence had been enforced by an influential group in the town, the same group that controlled the narrative and kept the townspeople quiet. When Charles began speaking out about what he knew, his family was driven out of town, and they had been threatened with harm if they ever returned. But now, with the rise of Lily's case, he felt he had no choice but to speak. Charles's story was chilling. There were certain families in Cedarwood whose wealth and power went back generations, and they had been the ones pulling the strings behind the scenes. They had orchestrated the disappearances, not for money, but to cover up dark, twisted rituals tied to the town's founding. As Hayes processed this, he realized that these families might still hold the keys to unlocking the mystery of Lily's disappearance. But could Charles be trusted? And what would the powerful people behind these families do to stop him from talking? The final warning. When a warning becomes a threat, how far are you willing to go for the truth? The stakes were higher than ever, and it became clear that someone was watching every move Hayes made. The police received an anonymous tip, an envelope with a single warning. Stop asking questions. Stop digging, or you will never see Lily again. The threat was chilling, but Hayes couldn't back down now. Every piece of evidence pointed to a hidden conspiracy, and he was too close to the truth to quit. As the investigation drew closer to the town's wealthy elite, Hayes realized that the people behind the disappearances were not just ordinary criminals. They were part of the town's social fabric. Cedarwood's history was built on dark foundations, and the truth was buried deep within the town's most powerful families. Hayes knew that uncovering the truth meant putting himself and his loved ones in danger. But he had no choice. He couldn't let the truth remain buried. The echoes grow louder. What if the voice you hear in the dark is the one calling you to your doom? The presence of echo became impossible to ignore. A cryptic message arrived at the police station. "I've been waiting for you to understand. You're not just investigating a disappearance. You're investigating the past, and the past is never truly gone." The voice of echo had been woven into every piece of the investigation. The strange phone calls, the mysterious letters, the cryptic warnings. It was all connected. But who was Echo? And why were they truly the final puzzle piece? What if everything you knew was just a game, and the pieces were being moved without your knowledge? After months of searching, Detective Hayes received a break. The missing piece to the puzzle was finally in his hands. A journal belonging to a former resident who had mysteriously disappeared years ago. In the journal, there were notes that mentioned a secret group within Cedarwood that controlled the town's fate. The group had been responsible for the disappearances, manipulating events, and erasing memories. It was clear now. This group had been the true orchestrators of the strange occurrences in Cedarwood, and they were still active today. But this journal revealed something far more disturbing. Lily had somehow become involved with this group, perhaps without even realizing it. She had uncovered their secrets, and someone had decided it was time to silence her. Was Lily part of the town's dark history, or had she been the target of a long-running conspiracy? The confrontation. In the final moments, the truth will come, crashing down. Will anyone survive the fallout? The investigation reached its boiling point. Hayes had finally tracked down the members of the secret group who had been manipulating events in Cedarwood. Confronting them meant risking everything. Their wealth, their power, and their dark secrets were too much for anyone to challenge. But Hayes was determined to see the truth come out. As the group confronted him in the shadows of an old mansion on the outskirts of town, the truth about Lily's disappearance began to unravel. The mastermind behind the entire conspiracy had been someone close to him, someone Hayes had never suspected. His old partner, Detective Marshall. Marshall had been pulling the strings from behind the scenes, orchestrating the disappearances, and using the town's power for his own dark purposes. The final confrontation was set to be a battle of wits as Hayes fought to expose the truth and save Lily, or what was left of her. The truth unveiled. The final truth is the hardest to accept. When everything you believed is shattered, how do you move forward? The final chapter revealed the chilling truth behind Lily's disappearance. She hadn't just been a victim of the town's conspiracy, she had been a key player in it. As the secret group began to unravel, it became clear that Lily had uncovered something too dangerous for the town to allow to survive. The real question remained. Was Lily still alive? Or had she become part of the town's dark legacy, forever lost to the shadows? This is the culmination of the mystery, where the investigation comes to a head, secrets are revealed, and the true nature of the conspiracy behind the disappearances is exposed. With the tension reaching its peak, the audience is left wondering what will happen to the remaining characters and whether the town of Cedarwood will ever be the same. Then came another twist. Hayes received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was distorted, but the message was clear. You're closer than you think, but if you keep digging, you'll never make it out alive. Was Echo trying to protect something? Or someone? Or was Echo the key to unlocking everything? The vanishing point. When the truth is finally exposed, does the past ever really let you go? The final pieces of the puzzle fell into place as Detective Hayes confronted his former partner, Detective Marshall. The mansion where they had met, long abandoned, now served as the final battleground. Marshall had been the architect of the town's greatest secret, a secret so twisted that even Hayes couldn't fully comprehend it until now. Marshall had orchestrated the disappearances to cover up a dark truth. The town's founding families were involved in a secret ritual, one passed down through generations. Each disappearance was not random, but part of an ancient pact. The ritual needed a sacrifice to ensure the prosperity of the town. The pattern was clear. The people who vanished were chosen to keep the town's dark history alive. The ritual's curse ensuring that the town continued to thrive. As Hayes pieced together the final connections, he realized with horror that Lily had been intended to be the next sacrifice. But something had changed. She had uncovered the truth, and instead of being the victim, she had become a threat to their power. That's why she was taken, but not in the way everyone had believed. Lily hadn't disappeared completely. She had gone into hiding, and now she was in control, the face of the future. Sometimes the hero you've been looking for was in the shadows all along. Lily's return to the investigation wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to send a chill through everyone involved. She emerged from the shadows of the mansion, stepping into the moonlight, revealing a woman who was no longer the frightened victim, but someone with a fire burning deep within her. Hayes had assumed Lily was gone for good, a casualty of the town's conspiracy. But she was alive, and she had been gathering allies, people who had once been close to the town's dark history, but who had turned against it. Together, they had spent months dismantling the group from the inside, weakening their hold on Cedarwood, without anyone realizing. As Lily took control of the situation, she made it clear to Marshall that the ritual would end tonight. She had come to reclaim her freedom, and the people who had allowed her to be part of their dark game were about to pay the price. The final stand hook. When power is ripped from the hands of the corrupt, will there be any survivors left standing? The confrontations escalated quickly. Marshall, realizing he was losing control, called upon the last remaining members of the secret group. They gathered in the mansion's dark hallways, ready to fight for the town's prosperity, even if it meant bloodshed. But they had underestimated Lily. She wasn't the same girl they had manipulated years ago. She was more determined than ever to expose everything. In a tense standoff, Lily used the evidence she had gathered, recordings, old letters, and the town's forgotten history, to dismantle the group piece by piece. Hayes, now fully aware of his own entanglement in the conspiracy, finally stood beside her. Together, they turned the tables on Marshall and his followers, forcing them to face the consequences of their actions. As the sun began to rise over Cedarwood, the final showdown was over. The mansion that had once held the town's darkest secrets was now a symbol of its redemption. The rituals, the sacrifices, and the conspiracies were all exposed, leaving the town to face the truth it had long tried to bury. The quiet aftermath. After the storm, when the dust settles, can you ever truly go back to what you once knew? The town of Cedarwood was forever changed. The town's elite families were arrested, their decades-old grip on power shattered. Detective Hayes was promoted, but he felt a deep, unshakable emptiness. No matter how many criminals he put away, he knew he could never undo the choices he had made in the past. Lily, too, would never return to the life she had known. The town would remember what had happened, but the scars would linger. The secrets that had been exposed couldn't be erased, and Cedarwood would forever be known as a place where darkness had thrived for too long. But in the end, it was the people who fought to bring the truth to light who would rebuild it. Lily stood at the edge of the town, looking out over the now quiet streets. She was free, but Cedarwood would never be the same. She had taken control of her own fate, but the price had been high. The echo fades. Even when the last echo of a secret fades away, what's left in its wake as life in Cedarwood slowly returned to normal, there was one last mystery to unravel. The town's history had been torn apart, but there were whispers that not everyone involved had been brought to justice. Some said Echo, the mysterious figure who had guided the investigation, was still watching, waiting for the perfect moment to step back into the shadows. But Lily knew better. She had been part of the shadows, and now she was the one who controlled the narrative. Cedarwood's fate was no longer in the hands of the past. It was in the hands of those who had fought to end it. In a quiet moment, Lily walked through the town one last time, past the old mansion where it all began. As she paused to look at the now abandoned structure, she felt the weight of everything that had happened. The story of Cedarwood was far from over, but for the first time, the town had a future built on the truth. The final touch. Some mysteries aren't solved. They simply fade away, only to resurface when you least expect them. Years later, a new investigator came to Cedarwood. The story of Lily and the dark history of the town had faded from memory, but some things never truly go away. The investigator found an old file in the archives, Lily's case. The final page was missing. As the new investigator reviewed the case, they couldn't help but wonder, was there more to the story? Had the truth really been uncovered? Or had the echoes of the past simply been buried, waiting for the right moment to resurface? the town of Cedarwood might have thought it was free. But the past was never truly gone. It was only waiting for someone to ask the right questions. A new dawn. After all the darkness, is there finally a light at the end of the tunnel? Months passed after the town of Cedarwood was freed from the grip of its dark past. The mansion that had once been the center of its darkest secrets was now a museum, a reminder of the town's struggle and the strength it took to uncover the truth. The town itself, though scarred, was slowly healing. Detective Hayes, though, forever changed by the ordeal, found peace in the work he had done. He became a local hero, but he never sought the spotlight. Instead, he focused on helping Cedarwood rebuild, using his experience to lead efforts for town-wide rehabilitation. The people who had been affected by the disappearances began to return to their lives, no longer haunted by the shadows of the past. But the greatest change came in the form of Lily, reclaiming the future. When you've survived the darkest storm, can you finally embrace the sunshine? Lily, once a terrified victim of Cedarwood's hidden secrets, was now a symbol of strength. She chose to stay in Cedarwood, not out of obligation, but because it had become her home. The life she had once known felt like a distant memory, replaced by something new. A community built on honesty, resilience, and the shared understanding that the past, though painful, no longer had control. Lily went on to help other survivors of the town's past, offering support to those who were still processing the trauma. She opened a foundation to help families affected by similar experiences and worked to bring about awareness on how small towns often hide big secrets. Her voice became an inspiring force for positive change, and she found a new purpose in helping others heal. With each passing day, Lily grew more confident in her role, not just as a survivor, but as a leader, a beacon of hope for Cedarwood's future. The town reborn. After the storm, there's always a rainbow. And Cedarwood was finally seeing its colors. Will it thrive again? Cedarwood began to thrive again, though it was different now. No longer shrouded in mystery and fear, the town began to prosper in new ways. Local businesses flourished as tourists came to learn about the town's fascinating and unsettling history, which was now being shared openly with respect for the victims and their stories. The people of Cedarwood no longer lived in fear, and the town's secrets were no longer hidden away in the shadows. The town's leaders worked together to create a safer, more transparent community. New laws were put into place to ensure that no one would ever manipulate Cedarwood again. The mayor, a young, idealistic woman who had been one of the first to stand up against the corruption, worked alongside Hayes and Lily to ensure that the future was built on truth, justice, and unity. A personal victory. When the world is dark, sometimes a single light can lead you home. In the final scene, we see Lily standing on the edge of the hill that overlooks the town. The sun is setting, casting a warm glow over Cedarwood. She smiles, her face finally at peace, free from the chains of the past. Beside her stands Hayes, who, after months of tension and turmoil, has found his own peace. They share a quiet moment, appreciating how far they've come. Lily has found happiness, not just because she uncovered the truth, but because she rebuilt herself from the inside out. She found the strength to face her fears and rebuild her future, proving that even the darkest secrets can't erase the light of hope. The final moments show the town coming alive again. Children play in the streets. People greet each other with smiles. Cedarwood, now a place of healing, has a second chance. Hope in the shadows. No matter how dark the night, the stars always shine. And Cedarwood's stars were finally out in full force. Lily and Hayes, once bonded by their shared pursuit of truth, now share a quiet friendship that embodies the spirit of Cedarwood's new beginning. They've moved past the shadows of the town's secrets and are finally able to look toward the future with hope. As the camera pans over Cedarwood, we see a banner hung across the main street that reads, Cedarwood, a town reborn. The residents are gathered for a town festival, celebrating their newfound freedom, the truth that was uncovered, and the strength of their community. Lily, standing on the stage as a speaker at the town event, looks out at the crowd with pride. Her voice, calm and steady, carries through the air. We've all faced our darkness, but we've come out stronger. Cedarwood is no longer a place of fear, but a place of hope. We are a town that has seen the worst, but we will always rise. As the crowd erupts in applause, Lily looks over to Hayes. He gives her a small, approving nod. And in that moment, both of them know they've done something that will last. They've changed the town's destiny forever. The camera pans up to the sky where the sun has finally set, and the stars shine brightly in the night sky. The echoes of the past have faded, but the future is wide open.